Here I am beating the penultimate stage in the Roguerunner.Exe mode of Ghost Runner 2, and all that I need to do now is just beat the final combat node of stage 4, and that would unlock me a special sword that I'm going to need in order to be able to unlock the Live by the Sword trophy for completing my sword collection. And honestly, at this point, going into this level, I was really nervous, but seeing as I had 10 lives, I was kind of hopeful that I'd be able to kill all of these enemies in this area in 10 attempts. But oh, how wrong I was. Ugh, I've just burnt through all of my lives and I've barely made any progress in this node. This is it, my final chance to beat this and get the sword. Come on! No! Ugh. Now, for anyone who's attempted to get this sword, I'm sure this game over screen is going to be really familiar, and if like me you've made it all the way to the end just to fail at the last hurdle, I'm sure you'd react like this too. This is a really tough trophy, yet for 98% of the sword you'll find, it's really easy, as it's mainly just another dumb collectibles trophy, with the majority of the swords you need being ones that you can find hidden in many of the game's levels, while all except this sword here, which for some dumb reason is only found in the Roguerunner.Exe mode, which is a roguelike minigame in which you'll be stripped of all your abilities and have to beat 4 increasingly difficult stages. Each of these stages contain multiple nodes, and the player can pick their path through them to the stage's final boss combat mode. You'll roughly have to beat 6 to 7 nodes per stage. You start out with just 5 lives, and if you run out of them, it's game over, and you'll have to start all over again from stage 1. Thankfully though, you can pick your route through these nodes, so you have a choice between combat or parkour nodes, so you can find a route that best suits your playstyle. There are some nodes that will also reward you with bonus lives upon completion, while others may award you with a character upgrade, so you can start to get stronger as you play through the stages and build up your lives, because you're going to need them for all of the nodes in stage 4, as that's where it gets really, really tough. So the key is having a good run through stages 1 to 3, and a lot of these you'll probably beat in a few seconds and fly through them without any real issues. I favoured the parkour stages, as they were mainly just platforming with very little threat of failure from an enemy who would shoot you from a distance, though as I got to stage 3, these nodes definitely became harder to finish without dying. When I was forced to do combat arenas, at the beginning they were only small, with a handful of enemies, but as you progress, you get more and more enemies thrown in, and the area you're fighting in will get bigger, and there'll be more bigger, stronger enemy types, so you'll have to play really well in these parts to scrape through them without dying, and hope that the game has given you a few good upgrades like the shurikens, and some abilities to auto-block, otherwise it's going to get really, really hard fast. Not having the shuriken straight away just makes combat a lot harder, because you're going to have to get up close and personal with your sword to kill these enemies, which risks you dying. You'll also not have as much stamina, so you can't block as many bullets before it runs out. So the main problem is your base level skills that you start with and the limited amount of lives that you're going to have. It's a very RNG heavy mode, and you're basically just relying on the game giving you a good run with lots of chances to earn extra lives on some of the easier parkour levels, as well as the game giving you the better upgrades and abilities for free, like the double jump and triple jump, or the auto block, or even better, the explosive deflection of bullets ability. These were the 4 ones that I found really useful throughout my run. Having the double and triple jumps made a lot of the parkour levels a lot easier to get through, as you could just skip large chunks of the level and more easily avoid some of the laser traps. In the combat arenas, I found that the shurikens were really useful, and the auto block and the explosive deflection were really great because you could deflect one bullet, and if there was more enemies nearby, as it hit the enemy, it would explode and kill all the others. I also found that the hit through enemies' attacks and to be invulnerable while doing your sort of dodge move to be really useful ones to get, but again, as it's really RNG heavy, you might not always get those ones, and a lot of the times you might end up just getting a load of crap ones, which just makes this challenge even harder than it needs to be. And as it's random, the levels that you play are also random, so even though I've beaten this, I haven't actually seen all of the different nodes for the combat and parkour levels, so there's probably some that are even harder than the ones I faced. So while I can't go through every single stage and give you tips there, I'm still going to highlight some of the worst ones that I encountered, the levels that just drained me of lives. So here's a quick collection of those. So I tended to not really die in stage 1 until the very final boss fight in this stage, because this one I would just trip up in a lot of places, and it's very easy to just get frustrated when you die and then just try and rush on your next life to just get back to where you were, only to then die again, and before you know it, you've lost a bunch of lives. So one of the tips I'll definitely give is to just try and stay calm. This one here, just the opening bit with the guy with the hammer, would drain me of lives because I would end up getting hit by just the normal standard enemies. So it's best to hit that boost pad to fly over him, so you can hit him and then deal with the ones that charge at you. And then I found it was best to just do the slide and boost, slide and jump down to the robot to get him before he fires his second laser at you. Then going along this other side here to kill the guy who jumps at you, all the while trying to dodge the guy with the gun across the way without him hitting you, was also a bit tricky. And then the rest of the enemies were fairly easy, but it was just getting all that together in order to be able to beat it without losing a few lives. And I tended to just struggle on every time I got to this one. This difficult parkour level definitely lived up to its name, because it really was difficult right from the get-go, and it drained me of so many lives, because this platforming section right at the beginning, I just couldn't get my head around it. I didn't know how to get over these 3 platforms before they would disappear. So these second and third ones seemed to come on at the same time, so I could just never get to that third one before it would disappear, and I would just fall to my death. And I was just at a point where I was just really wanting to get this trophy done, and my brain was just frazzled, and I was really struggling to get over that consistently without losing a couple of lives every time I wanted to try it again. Then once you get past that hard bit, you've got these moving platforms and these red death lasers that you've got to try and avoid, and you've got to jump between the gaps and land on the platforms, which again is really tricky. Then once you get past that, there's a tiny little block that you've got to try and jump onto without falling off. Then you've got to leapfrog that onto another moving platform while staying on that and jumping over the red laser fences that are in your way. Then once you get past that, you've got to jump on a series of 2 more moving blocks and leap across to them and around them to avoid the red walls. It's just a really difficult parkour level, and one that I just really didn't enjoy, it taking so many of my lives. These 2 parkour levels were also a real nightmare that drained me of so many lives. This one here is tricky, even with the double and triple jumps, because trying to get around these without them is really hard, because you'll have to wall run along the edge to get back up onto the top of the ledge. Then once you get to this like red laser force field thing, you got to weave in and out of them, and you got to be really quick there, otherwise you can get caught. And then the last bit, just jumping over that thing and ducking under it, is quite tricky. And then trying to get around this was too risky, so I just used my double jumps to go around it. This parkour level though was a real nightmare, and I think it was actually hard even with the triple jumps, and I don't even know how you do it without them, because I really struggled here to do it. You've got to try and stay up really high to be able to leap over them and then get back into that portal to teleport you, and then you've still got to do a little bit more to get past this little bit. Horrible level. Overall, Roguerunner.Exe is a brilliant game mode in Ghost Runner 2, but I think it's really dumb that they've tied this Sword Collectibles trophy to this mode. If anything, Roguerunner.Exe should have had its own trophy for beating stage 4, as that is the real challenge here, not just finding all of the swords. I would have rather had that trophy instead of another dumb collectibles trophy, when the game already has several of those to begin with. This mode is definitely challenging, and it can be unfair at times, and some of those parkour levels are really BS to get through, but it's a mode that you can do. It can be beaten. I did it in actually 4 attempts. My 3rd attempt was when I got to stage 4's final level and died, and then my next attempt after that I beat it. So it can be done, but I can agree that it would be really annoying at times, because it's just, you're at the mercy of the game giving you good stuff to be able to get through those levels, because I don't think I could have beaten that final level without the triple jump, because I used it to get up to the top to kill the big robot first, and then I basically worked my way back down the level to get all of them killed. So yeah, for that reason I feel that this Live by the Sword trophy is BS, because it shouldn't have been a sword collectible trophy. It should have been a trophy for beating stage 4 of Roguerunner.Exe. So for that reason, the Live by the Sword trophy deserves a BS rating.
Oh God, thank